Welcome to the world of Steven Seagal, actor, martial arts master, musician, diplomat, environmental and animal rights activist, vegetable epicure, and not to mention, a ladies' man.
In all the allegations of sexual harassment, you had a rape allegation against you, and I wonder how you deal with all that.
In 1952, in Lansing, Michigan, the greatest human being ever to walk the earth was born. Contrary to popular belief, Steven Seagal was not born on Mount Olympus, or forged in Asgard, or created through the synergies of the gods of Egypt. He was born to mortals, one a medical technician and another a teacher. He moved from the Rust Belt of Michigan to sunny California to live out the American dream before moving again to Japan to pursue his interests in martial arts, namely aikido. You can check out his incredible aikido skills. You can just see how much effort his opponents put into getting their own asses kicked. Having yellow fever, he married a Japanese woman, who was the daughter of the dojo master that he was working under, and they had two spawnlings together. Steven Seagal would return to America, divorced after having an affair. He then started his acting career. He starred in a variety of movies, which sound like they were titled by a 14-year-old boy on the internet who wanted to act like a tough guy. Here are some of their titles. Above the Law, Out for Justice, Marked for Death, Hard to Kill, all of which were panned by critics. In 2001, he hosted a Saturday Night Live episode, but it was a flop, and he was called the worst host ever. To be fair to Steven Seagal, despite his performance sucking absolute balls, it was still better than a lot of the shit you see on the show today post-2015. However, he did star in one good movie, and that was called Under Siege. This movie was released in 1992. It was an action movie about Navy SEALs, starring Tommy Lee Jones. Unlike previous movies, it was a big hit and was highly praised. In the mind of Steven Seagal, this was just one small element of a legacy of the greatest organism to ever draw breath on this planet. In the eyes of everyone else, it was a golden nugget in a pile of manure. After Under Siege, he continued to star in direct movies. This time, the ones went direct to TV, meaning without a cinematic release. Something you usually see for Hallmark movies and Christmas movies that are really just, let's say, unconventional. There's not much to say about these movies other than they had crappy action scenes and they had titles that could only have been written by a man who wears sunglasses indoors. Black Dawn, Outreach, Submerged, Belly of the Beast, Kill Switch, Pistol Whipped, Urban Justice, Driven to Kill, Against the Dark, Born to Raise Hell, The Keeper, and A Dangerous Man. Titan Publishing even wrote a book analyzing Steven Seagal's movies from an intellectual perspective called Seagalology in order to understand the meaning of his movies. The meaning being slapping people and explosions. Steven was such a badass in these movies that he can kick ass while sitting in his own chair. It's rather strange that he tried to market himself as some master fighter without sitting down while simultaneously trying to market his other product, his energy drink. Say what you want about the health effects of energy drinks, but they're usually good for people getting off of their asses. But Seagal is such an alpha male that he can defeat terrorists and criminals while having his overweight ass cheeks firmly planted onto a cushion. As you could probably tell, he got fatter and fatter over the years. And it's hard to convince the viewing public that you're an ultra-large master when you're built like a potato sack filled with cottage cheese. As his movie career was entering the shitter, he pursued other ventures like his aforementioned energy drink business, called Steven Seagal's Lightning Bolt, and even a brand of aftershave called quote-unquote the Scent of Action. Given his weight and filmography, it probably smelled like Cheeto dust and onion rings. He eventually teamed up with Russian weapons manufacturers to make rifles and knives, which I'm pretty sure have been used by Putin to kill a few journalists or two. He was even granted Russian citizenship along with Serbian citizenship, one of the few countries in Eastern Europe still kissing Russia's ass. He called Putin one of the greatest living leaders and a quote-unquote brother. Putin's PR team, on the other hand, has reported to have claimed, quote, he wouldn't necessarily say he's a huge fan, but he's definitely seen some of his movies, unquote. More recently, Steven Seagal has tried to solve the Russia-Ukraine war by having a birthday party in Moscow. He was also filming a documentary in the war-torn Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. I'm sure the Ukrainians are terrified of his aikido skills. Speaking of Russia and aikido skills, here is a clip of him showing the Ruskies how much of an alpha male he truly is. You can see the perfection, the divine masculine, and the way he just stands there. He also met with the dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, on his estate, and discussed highly important geopolitical strategic matters, like who could act as the best Easter Bunny. During this time, he also took an interest in music. This is a song called She Saw Me Want the Punani. Punani being a Jamaican word for vagina. I'll let you judge for yourself.
Why? Tell me what you really want.
He also took an interest in law enforcement, starring in Steven Seagal, Lawman, in the state of Louisiana. Season 3 was the most eventful, as he switched from Louisiana to Maricopa County in Arizona, which is basically the city of Phoenix, led by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who is oftentimes regarded as being one of the most hated sheriffs in America, back when he was actually a sheriff. He was notorious for his racism against Mexicans in particular, while that didn't bother Steven Seagal. The show was dropped before Season 3, however, because apparently he and Sheriff Joe Arpaio wanted to serve justice by cracking down on a cockfighting ring led by a Hispanic man. Keep in mind that Steven Seagal had been a staunch environmental and animal rights activist, so this made sense. Right? He wanted to save those poor chickens from being tormented. And just how did he save those poor chickens from this disgusting animal abuser? Who, by the way, was Mexican? Well, he ran his tank into the property. Yes, a tank. A tank. Let me repeat that. A tank. A fucking tank. Killing over 100 chickens in the process. Chickens he was trying to save. And a puppy died too. Speaking of dead puppies, Steven Seagal is also a holy man. He is a Buddhist. Some Buddhists have embraced this, claiming that he is the reincarnation of a figure known as the Chungdrakdorji. I have no idea how you pronounce that, my apologies. This is basically a quote-unquote treasure revealer who lived during the 1600s, who has now been reincarnated as a fat actor slash martial artist enthusiast slash carrot eater. Other Buddhists claim that he got this recognition through donations. Speaking of being a deeply religious person, Steven has also been embroiled in numerous sexual misconduct allegations. Now, these are allegations, not convictions, but it's worth keeping in mind that they date all the way back to the 1990s, before the Me Too era, when breathing in front of a feminist without her consent could be considered assault. Much of this revolves around the casting couch, along with sex trafficking allegations from Vietnamese women, all the way to unzipping his pants in front of an actress off-screen for quote-unquote chemistry. He also allegedly assaulted actresses during the pre-production process, and yes, even the R word, the one that sounds like a grape. He also has been accused of physical abuse towards stuntmen who have actually been doing the fighting while he channels his Buddhist masculine power through his man titties while sitting down. And that pretty much sums up Steven Seagal, the polymath, legendary warrior, cinematic genius, human and animal rights crusader, and master of group fu. Thanks for watching. Cheers.